Think of traditional Chinese culture. You picture Shaolin monks practicing kung fu, multi-tiered pagodas, the rhythms of spoken Mandarin, and the mythical Monkey King. These icons appear native, yet their foundations were actually forged thousands of miles away, across the Himalayas and the Indian Ocean. For over 2,000 years, ancient India served as an intellectual teacher to China. It was an era of cultural cross-pollination, where ideas moved as freely as trade goods, and it happened without India ever sending a single soldier across the border. While ancient China possessed its own rigorous philosophies and masteries, this quest for learning sparked a massive expansion of the Chinese worldview. Foreign monks and mariners arrived to share new concepts of compassion, science, and folklore, resulting in the greatest synthesis of knowledge in the ancient world. In the 5th or 6th century, an Indian monk named Bodhidharma arrived at the Shaolin temple. He found the monks exhausted from endless hours of meditation, so he introduced a series of conditioning techniques to rejuvenate them, systems drawn directly from the ancient Indian Kshatriya, the elite warrior class. These Indian soldiers had engineered a lethal hand-to-hand combat system called Vajramukti, meaning thunderbolt closed hands. It provided warriors with wrestlers' throws and striking tactics to survive on the battlefield if they were unseated from their chariots and left with weapons. To master those strikes, Kshatriya warriors spent centuries mapping the human body's most vulnerable points using stone daggers. They plotted these targets along channels of vital energy called prana. When this energetic model reached China, the Sanskrit concept of prana became the Chinese qi, and the warrior's map of targets provided the foundational model for traditional acupuncture. This anatomical knowledge soon extended into complex medicine. Prior to the arrival of Buddhism, advanced operative surgery was virtually unknown in China. Indian physicians introduced sophisticated procedures to the imperial elite, performing laparotomies, skull surgeries, cataract removals, and even early inoculations for smallpox. China successfully repurposed these lethal battlefield tactics and invasive surgical texts. They integrated this foreign knowledge into a uniquely Chinese system built for physical longevity and monastery defense. This cross-pollination even changed how the Chinese language is spoken. As scholars began translating vast libraries of Sanskrit texts, they faced a phonetic collision. Sanskrit is a highly polyphonic language, full of fluid, rolling sounds, whereas native Chinese was monopthonal, rigid, single-vowel sounds. Chanting Sanskrit verses in Chinese either sounded hurried and abrupt or lost its poetic rhythm entirely. This dilemma forced the invention of the theory of four tones in 489 AD. Scholars modified Chinese pronunciation to accommodate the complex sounds of Indian sutras, permanently altering the tones of the Chinese language to preserve the original rhythm of the scriptures. This phonetic obsession went even further. During the Tang dynasty, scholars attempted to design a Chinese alphabetical system modeled directly on Sanskrit grammar. Known as the Balamen Shu, or Brahminical writing, it was a radical attempt to replace pictographic characters with a system based on sounds. While linguists were decoding syllables, Chinese scientists were studying at Nalanda University. Indian mathematicians from the Chang'an astronomical schools introduced the trigonometric table of signs to Chinese planners and placed the very first zero symbol into a Chinese text in 729 AD. They also brought over the Hindu doctrine of pralayas, the idea that the universe undergoes periodic cataclysmic destructions and recreations, where land and sea are violently inverted. Neo-Confucian thinkers applied this imported logical framework of cosmic cycles to their own observations. By synthesizing these Indian cycles with their native logic, they correctly identified the true nature of marine fossils found in high mountains centuries before they were understood in Europe. Even the Chinese skyline was transformed. The multi-tiered pagoda is a direct structural and linguistic descendant of the ancient Indian Buddhist stupa. Over time, the Sanskrit word stupa evolved into the Chinese ta, the term for pagoda. The recognizable silhouette we know today was engineered by Newar builders from Nepal. They modified the Indian temple design by elevating the structure on a platform and introducing an upward tilt to the roofs to shed heavy rain, a style that migrated through Tibet and across China. Inside those temples, the stories were changing too. Ancient China was famously realistic and had almost no native mythology or fairy tales. To bridge this gap, Indian monks introduced the moral framework and adventure structure of the Ramayana, providing the direct inspiration for China's most beloved mythic hero, the Monkey King. This spiritual blending is physically preserved in the Dunhuang cave murals. In these sacred Buddhist sanctuaries, artists seamlessly integrated classical Hindu deities, depicting Shiva riding his bull Nandi and Vishnu on his Mount Aruda, right alongside the Buddha. This imaginative spiritual folklore and symbolic architecture provided a vivid, supernatural vocabulary to ancient China's traditionally grounded culture, giving them a new way to express the infinite. While we often focus on the overland Silk Road, a massive, highly organized maritime network across the Indian Ocean drove much of this exchange. As early as 680 BC, Hindu sea traders established a coastal colony in southeast China called Langa. They arrived in massive ocean-going vessels built using the Yukti Kalpataru, an ancient Sanskrit naval engineering text that dictated ships with distinct animal-headed prows. These ships were immense. The scholar Fa Hien recorded his return to China aboard a merchant vessel carrying over 200 passengers straight across the open ocean, a ship far larger than those Christopher Columbus would use 1,000 years later. This maritime highway was a two-way street. Indian markets imported Chinese silk, known in Sanskrit as chinamsuka, as well as peaches, porcelain, and the technology of papermaking. Mastering the predictable monsoon winds of the Indian Ocean ultimately accelerated the transfer of revolutionary ideas far faster than the treacherous mountain caravans of the north. This era created an evolutionary synthesis. Chinese culture absorbed foreign elements from India and integrated them into a distinct, naturalized heritage that many now view as purely Chinese. We see it in Neo-Confucianism, where scholars intentionally blended imported Buddhist logic and epistemology with traditional native Chinese statecraft. Over time, the relationship shifted. After centuries of Indian influence, the Southern Sung dynasty initiated a cultural pivot, reclaimed their heritage, and promoted purely native Chinese artistic styles. History reveals that the most significant and enduring cultural shifts happen through the open, voluntary, and peaceful cross-pollination of ideas. These 2 millennia of cooperation confirm that China and India were once inseparable partners in shaping the mind of Asia.